Shohei Ohtani's rehab is over. He's going to just be playing normal now. What does that mean for him? We'll get into that. And should the Dodgers think about Mike Trout and or Blake Snell? That's all coming up. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. Find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. And if you never want to miss a day and become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day, which can be made easier by subscribing wherever you have podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. I'm Vince Samperio, joined by my co-host Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have spent time covering the team in the past. We've watched a lot of Dodger games in our lifetime, specifically the last 5 years when we've been doing this podcast. And we're not quite insiders. We're just here to bring you what we believe is the smart fans' thoughts and rationales and reasons for being a Dodger fan and making you a smarter Dodger fan, hopefully in the process. Speaking to that, I got a text from an old buddy that says his mother-in-law started listening to Locked On Dodgers, and she loves it because she's becoming a smarter Dodger fan and can have more conversations with him. So, we're out here doing the people's work, Jeff.
Nice. I got a text from the mother of a kid on my son's wrestling team. Said, by the way, are you famous? Jake said you might be famous. And I said, nope, but I do have a podcast. So she said she's going to check it out. So, hey, Lisa, enjoy. I don't think she cares about the Dodgers, so we'll see how long she lasts. But, we're doing our thing out here, Vince.
Yeah, we can only do so much, and that much is giving you this podcast here for 30 minutes every Monday through Friday. So let's hop right into it. Shohei Ohtani faced his former team on Tuesday and had his worst game of the spring, struck out his first 2 times, didn't agree with one of the strike 3 calls, but the results of the game and what happened with him didn't necessarily matter. It was more about what he said after, which is that his rehab as a hitter is now over. Originally, he was supposed to play Tuesday, Wednesday. Then they backtracked and said, just Tuesday on Tuesday morning. And then Otani after the game said, I'm going to play tomorrow because my rehab as a hitter is over. And I just want to get the work in before heading to Korea. So, it didn't seem like we were in jeopardy of not seeing him as the DH in Korea, but this just solidified it.
Yeah, for sure. And, Dave Roberts said that of the 9 remaining Cactus League games, Shohei is likely to play in 5 of them. I thought it was fun because, as we talked about, Shohei always does his interviews with his interpreter. And you can tell by watching him, and this is the case with a lot of players who do interviews with interpreters, you can tell that they understand the question as it's being asked. But, for reasons we've talked about before, they let the interpreter do his job just to make sure there's nothing lost in translation. But at one point, a reporter asked him, are you going to play tomorrow? And Shohei didn't wait for a translation. Just said, yep. And then the follow-up question was more detailed. And so he did go back to the translator. But I think it was mostly knowing that it was a one-word answer from him. He felt comfortable just saying, yep. But yeah, it is good news that, we have kind of assumed and hoped that everything would go smoothly with the rehab and that he would be ready to start this season in Korea. As the DH, but it hasn't really been a sure thing. And as we've watched him hit everything, he's said multiple times, everything is on track, which is a good thing. But the fact that now basically that rehab is done. He's no longer a rehabbing hitter. He is a rehabbing pitcher and a full-time DH. And it's really good news. And like you said, the results of the 0 for 3 don't really matter. His batting average on the spring is now down to 500. So, we'll probably survive. I suspect he won't bat 500 in the regular season, probably only like 420. But I didn't mean to say 420. Sorry. You guys know I'm not immature like that. But it's yeah, it's definitely good news that it's kind of set in stone now. Shohei is going to play, basically the whole season as the DH.
Yeah, and like I said, it was nothing that had been concerned about, but just hearing it, the fact that his rehab is over is beneficial. I saw someone with the tweet, since we never technically got word of what Otani's surgery was, Tommy John, brace, whatever the case was. But his recovery as a hitter is on par with Bryce Harper's last year when he got Tommy John surgery. So, even if it wasn't Tommy John, it's similar enough to where their timelines were parallel in terms of coming back as a hitter. And, Bryce Harper, we saw, came back and had a little bit of power loss at first, kind of figured it out toward the end of the season, and obviously into the postseason, he was back to the guy that he was. Otani, we've already seen this spring, he hit an opposite field home run, like on a pitch that he shouldn't have hit out. So I don't think there's any concern really. I would imagine maybe playing back-to-back days, playing 3 out of 4 days, whatever he's going to do the next few days. That might be where some fatigue or soreness could emerge, but realistically, I don't think there's any more concern the rest of the way, at least as a hitter.
Yeah. And, in a way, I think that Otani's oblique injury or whatever it was last year, it ends up being a blessing in disguise from a Dodgers standpoint, because he was able to get his elbow surgery a little bit sooner because his season was shut down a little bit sooner than maybe would have been expected. And when we are looking at, like, we were counting down the days, basically it's going to be, down to the wire. Is he going to be ready for Korea? Even a delay, because I think he had surgery like September 19th or 20th of last year. So even if he had to wait till after the season, that's 2.5 weeks at least. And so, we would realistically be looking at, he's not going to be ready for Korea, and he might not even be ready for domestic opening day. And so, obviously, I'm sure he wasn't thrilled to have the oblique injury last year, but it did, I think, lead to him getting the elbow surgery sooner. And maybe he would have, since the Angels were out of it, maybe he would have had the surgery sooner anyway. But, it's hard to say, I'm done with this team. I could keep playing, but I'm not going to. When, it's a lot easier when, I can't play anyway. Well, let's go ahead and get this cleaned up.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, the Angels were still kind of fighting for a playoff spot, and then kind of went away. But speaking of the Angels, like we mentioned, that's who the Dodgers played on Tuesday. We'll get a little bit of what happened in the game, and then a little bit of what happened during the game as players were running out, and social media decided to have some fun. So that's what's coming up. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. If football season's over, but the action on the court is heating up, whether it's tournament season or the fight for playoff home court, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Now, yes, there's more than just basketball, but right now, basketball is the main one that's in season, and you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. So go check it out right now. You can look at tomorrow's game. LeBron James currently is set at 25.5 points against the Kings. I would say more. The Lakers are in basically playoff mode the rest of the season, trying to get out of the play-in game. So LeBron James, 25.5, I'd go more. Anthony Davis is set at 25.5 as well. I would go less for him just because I feel like he's going to have a big game defensively. And then D'Angelo Russell set at 17.5 points. I'd go more for him. He's been on fire last few games. So that's 3 picks. You just need one more pick, and you can get set for those daily prizes. So go check out prizepicks.com. And remember, right now, you can download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's download the PrizePicks app, use the code LOCKEDONMLB in all lowercase, and check it out and get your first deposit match up to $100. So go check it out. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for making us your first listen. Make sure to check us out wherever you have podcasts and on YouTube. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and become a Locked On Dodgers insider. Or go to thejointsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. You can text directly with us, get our thoughts, reactions, and daily tidbits every so often from us. So make sure to check that out. And if you're already on YouTube, after you subscribe, you can go to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles and check those out. Those are two 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network that are covering the biggest news and stories from the sports world and LA sports world from Locked On hosts, experts, and more. All right, Jeff, a couple little things from this game with the Angels. We'll start with Max Muncy because he got hit again and came out of the game. It seemed more precautionary than anything. He did get hit in his leading leg, right leg. Looked like could be the knee, could be somewhere around the knee. But it was one of those where as soon as he got hit, he was trying to limp his way to first base, and we could hear Roberts on the broadcast yelling for him to just, stop. The trainer ran out there, walked him back to the dugout. I think it might be time to just put Max Muncy in bubble wrap and send him to Korea right now.
Yeah, or tell these pitchers to stop hitting him. I don't know. Luckily, this one was an off-speed pitch, and like you said, it did look to me like it got a little bit above the knee, probably on the muscle there. And it's easy to get a Charlie horse, a dead leg from getting hit right there, but it's also something that's usually fine the next day. Maybe a little sore, but not. No concern about any bones because it did look like it missed the kneecap, so that's good. Muncy wasn't going to play the whole game anyway. There's zero reason to leave a guy in a game after he's been hit in the leg when it's March 5th. It does suck though. And hopefully he's not really normally that HBP prone. He gets hit a fair amount, but I think they said on the broadcast tonight that he had only been hit 3 times in spring training in his entire career. And now he's been hit 3 times this spring. It's the Dodgers need Max Muncy. They need him to be healthy. And so, pitchers need to rein it in a little bit, find the strike zone, boys.
Yeah, we got a look at Bobby Miller. We've seen him obviously already this spring, but it's been a strong spring for Dodgers starting pitching. We've seen a lot of guys, different guys. Glass now had the 5Ks in his outing the other day. Saw Bobby Miller get through 3 scoreless. Despite a little bit of bad defense, which we'll get into. We've seen, guys like Landon Knack, Gavin Stone all have their separate outings, not all starting, but some starting. And Yamamoto obviously was good in his debut. James Paxton was good in his Cactus League debut. So there's been a lot of promising things from the starting pitching. The relievers too, like Blake Trinan and look pretty good. Daniel Hudson labored a little bit, but he's coming back off a leg injury and not having thrown for a while. But yeah, Jeff, it's been, they talked about it during the broadcast that the Dodgers offense has been really, really good, but the Dodgers actual pitchers that are going to be on the opening day or have some kind of impact on the team this year have also looked really good.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're about 4 runs in 27-ish innings now for the starting pitchers. Yeah. And like you said, not all of those guys are going to be on the roster, but some of them are, and they're pitching well. And even this game, it was mostly Nabil Krismat who struggled in this game, and he's not going to sniff the Dodgers roster probably ever. No offense to Nabil Krismat and his family, but he's not a very good pitcher. And so he'll pitch for the Oklahoma City Baseball Club, but not the you can't even claim those Dodgers anymore because they're not the Dodgers anymore. So the guys who are going to be on the team, Daniel Hudson did give up 1 run, but again, that one was impacted by not getting help from his defense when he should have. Yeah, the pitchers who are likely to be on and it seems like a yearly thing, like the Dodgers pitching just kind of gets overlooked, and it ends up being, wow, these guys are really good. And I think the bullpen's going to be good this year. I think the starting rotation is going to be really good. There's still questions about who's going to fill what roles, but the guys who are likely to be the 13 pitchers on the Dodgers roster are all going to be pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it appears that way. Speaking on that defense, the Dodgers had trouble on Tuesday turning double plays. mostly due to Mookie Betts. He was off balance on one, pulled Freddie a little bit off the bag. He couldn't hold on to it. And then the other one, he short hop Freddie a little bit, and Freddie didn't quite pick it out. It did end up ultimately hurting Hudson, not Bobby Miller. But yeah, Jeff, it's one of those where we haven't really thought about Mookie Betts' defense last year. He was, I don't remember any significant issues with him on defense at short or at second, and obviously more specifically at second now. And to this point this spring, we haven't really noticed it. So I'm just gonna chalk it up to a bad game. But is there any concern that we have back of our minds about Mookie being a full-time second baseman now?
I don't think so. I've noticed over the last year and a half or so that even out in right field, that Mookie Betts' arm, I don't think is as strong as it used to be. When you think about the Mookie Betts who threw out whichever D-backs player, Ketel Marte or whoever on the ground ball down the right field line, threw him out trying to stretch it to a triple, that throw, and Mookie had an almost identical throw when he was with the Red Sox. Like, I don't think that arm is there anymore for Mookie Betts. I still think he has a good arm though, and definitely good enough to play second base. And these throwing issues, the two on Tuesday night, both seem pretty clear to be footwork issues more than arm issues. And that's something that is easy to work on. I'm sure it'll take time, but knowing Mookie Betts, he's probably going to be out there tomorrow taking extra work, having Lux or Rojas feeding him, or even Dino Ebel feeding him throws to second, to turn double plays and work on that footwork, because he does have plenty of arm strength to make those throws. And it was just that the footwork, he was basically working against himself on those throws. And so the defense catching the ball has looked pretty good. Even he had a ground ball up the middle that he looked a little bit awkward, like almost stumbling a little bit to make the play, but he made the play on the shortstop side of second base. And then he had the awareness to realize, it's Miguel Sano running, and so I don't need to rush the throw because he weighs 9,000 pounds. It's all muscle, but still,
he
it's
lost
hard.
Like 40 pounds.
Yeah. So he's down to 9,000. He used to be 9,040. But and he made a good throw there. And so it really is, I think it's just a footwork thing. And so you have a guy who hasn't, even though he played 60 games at second base last year, but I mean, that's 60 games out of the last 1,300 games that he's played have been at second base. The rest have been in right field. And so there's still going to be a little bit of that learning curve. But the one thing we know about Mookie is that he works hard when he wants to be good at something. And he has, I don't think, ever been unsuccessful at becoming good at something he wants to be good at. And so I have no doubt that Mookie will put in the work and end up having footwork that is just fine.
Yeah, like I said, I remember he turned double plays. I think the arm thing is interesting, but we saw him make that play a lot of times last year, so really no concern. He also dropped. It was kind of a sloppy game overall for the Dodgers, so maybe just chalk it up to a night game when they're used to day games during the spring. I don't know, but either way, no real general concern here. Mookie Betts, when he exited the field, was seen talking to Mike Trout, and fans were quick to bring up pictures of him talking to Freddie Freeman when Freddie was with the Braves, talking to Shohei Ohtani when he was with the Angels, and obviously the people started speculating that is Mookie going to go 3 for 3? So let's get into that and then talk a little bit about Big Snell. But first, you're gonna have to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. If you want to become an everydayer, all you have to do is listen or watch every day. We're here for you every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes, wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Remember, you can go beyond the podcast and go Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Dodgers. Locked On Dodgers Insiders get direct text from us with news, updates, reactions, thoughts. You can also text us directly for any reactions, thoughts, questions that you may have, and you get a little priority when we do our mailbag episodes, or if you have any other general questions that you want and we have topics to talk about. So thank you for those who are already part of the club, and we look forward to more of you joining. All right, Jeff, let's hop right into it. Mike Trout, he wanted the Angels to spend more money this offseason. They have declined to do so far, and is a guy that's looking like, I don't know if there's a reason for him to still be in Anaheim. And we talked about it at the beginning of the offseason, when the Dodgers were kind of linked to Mike Trout vaguely. And we talked about, we'd be all on board for it. But now after the offseason, we've seen everything that's happened. Is Mike Trout is that juice still worth the squeeze? Or would it have to become under some alterations to that contract that he has?
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because when he's playing, he's still very, 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 very good. But he has, counting this year, 7 years left on his contract, and whatever 7 times 37 million is, 210, 250, $260 million left on his contract. Now it is, I mean, the Dodgers print money. It's not really a money issue. But he hasn't played a full season since 2016. 2018, he had played 140 games. That's his most since 2016. In the shortened season, 2020, he played 53 of their 60 games, so that's pretty close. And like I said, he's still very good. In that time, since starting in 2017, so even though he hasn't played a full season, when he has been playing, he's got an OPS plus of 178. His OPS is over 1,000. He's ridiculously good. He's still very efficient base stealer. Everything about Mike Trout is still very good. His defense is as good as ever was, probably, except his rookie. I think his rookie, basically since his rookie year, he has been more of an average defender than an elite defender. But he's still as good as he's been. And so, I don't, it used to be that to trade for Mike Trout, you would have had to take on the whole contract and give up the farm. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I think if the Dodgers were willing to take on $30 million a year, the Angels eat a little over $7 million a year. Dodgers take on $30 million and trade a couple prospects. The Angels would probably do it. And, I don't hate the idea for the Dodgers. Again, the fact that Trout is always hurt doesn't mean that he always will be hurt. But, it's also the case that he's 32 years old now. He's going to be 33 in August. Guys generally don't get healthier as they go into their 30s. And he's going to be, under contract until he's 39. So there's concerns there, but I love Mike Trout, and I still kind of think I would love to see Mike Trout on the team if they can make something work, especially because it's not a case of taking on all the money and giving up the farm like it used to would have been.
Yeah, that's really where it sits, is if you're going to take all the money, you're not going to give up much, and the Angels probably wouldn't go for that. And then the Angels have to decide how much money they would want to give up and what the Dodgers are willing to pay. Realistically, when it comes down to it, as long as Artie Moreno's the owner, I don't see them ever doing that with the Dodgers, just because, he would rather be petty than make his team better, as we've seen in the past. I know I saw a couple Angel fans, random tweets from Angel fans after Pages one of his home runs, and them remembering that they could have hit that guy if Artie Moreno had just been patient and waited for things to happen instead of getting impatient. So, yeah, that's kind of the more realistic approach to it. But, yeah, I mean, who wouldn't love Mike Trout? It's one of those where, how, if you were – I don't know if everyone has this, but, when you're in a position of power or a team captain or something like that, and, you kind of have you pick someone that because you want them to win rather than maybe you whatever you don't need them, whatever the case is. It's kind of how it feels with Trout. Like, oh, Trout, come over here, experience the playoffs with us. Like, kind of like when Pujols came to the Dodgers after being with the Angels for a while, and it's like, look at Pujols having so much fun again and being in the playoffs and everything else. It feels kind of that way with him, but the fact is he's still good and was obviously way better than Pujols was at that point. But it wouldn't cost what it did before, and now the Angels are kind of stuck in a weird spot. They shouldn't have waited.
Yeah, and Trout is the kind of guy the Dodgers should take a risk on, because the risk for him is not being on the field. Like, there's not the risk of him being bad necessarily. It's the risk of him being hurt, which means, okay, somebody else plays. The danger in guys like that is, well, what if he just gets bad? What if he stops being a good baseball player? And like Matt Kemp, late in his, Dodgers career, it's like, okay, he's not very good anymore, and that's a more dangerous thing than a guy who's just injury prone. I shouldn't have brought up Matt Kemp. There's plenty of examples. I don't know. I was thinking about Matt Kemp because when we were talking about Mookie with the pictures with Freddie and Shohei, I was thinking about Matt Kemp with Manny Machado at the All-Star break in 2018. So I had Matt Kemp on the mind, but when Mike Trout is healthy, he's going to be good. And when he's not healthy, that's fine. They have somebody else play. They don't have to worry about him being bad. And so it's just money. And that's, that should be the Dodgers motto. It's just money.
Yeah. Speaking of it's just money, we got a couple requests from listeners and fans about our thoughts on Blake Snell and or Jordan Montgomery, but more so Blake Snell, knowing that Cody Bellinger and Matt Chapman both took 3-year deals with 2 opt-outs, which the Giants for Chapman called a 1-year deal with a potential
2 player
extension.
options.
Yeah, player options. So if we haven't necessarily heard that Blake Snell would be open to that, or maybe we have, but we never know with the rumors. But if Blake Snell was open to that and there was a way for the Dodgers to get him on a short-term deal with those opt-outs, does it make sense now still?
I think it makes a ton of sense. Like, even with what the Dodgers have, the Dodgers for 2024, I think could always use more pitching. 2025, with Otani back and Dustin May back and Tony Gonsolin back, there's plus some of these, River Ryan probably being ready, Landon Knack being ready, Nick Frosso maybe being ready, Kyle Hurt, all these guys. Like 2025 and beyond, the Dodgers maybe don't have room for a Blake Snell type, but 2024, I think the Dodgers could definitely use Blake Snell. And since, especially because the big concern about him is that he's already well into his 30s. And so, not how old is Blake Snell? He's into his 30s. I didn't mean to say he's like 38, but he's in his 30s. And so he's won 2 Cy Young awards, but every year that he hasn't won a Cy Young award, he's been kind of meh. And so, there's definitely concerns about Blake Snell, but a 1-year deal where he doesn't have to be the ace. He can come in and, slot into the 5th rotation spot, get paid like an ace for a year, but not have to have the pressure of an ace. I think that could be a win-win for Snell, obviously to be in a good situation to kind of reset his value. The challenging part is because he is, 31 years old. Matt Chapman is younger than that. Cody Bellinger is younger than that. So they, it makes a little more sense for them to take a 1-year deal to reset their value. Whereas Blake Snell is going to be 32 a year from now. And at that time, it's hard to picture his free agency value being better than it is right now, except for the fact that there's so much weird stuff going on this offseason with the regional sports networks and everything, that you could see a guy hoping, and I think that's what Bellinger and Chapman are doing, hoping that stuff gets sorted out. So next year teams are a little bit more secure in their finances and ready to maybe break the bank. And so I don't think Snell is going to get the 7 years he was hoping for, whether it's a 1-year deal this year and a 6-year deal next year. But I do think maybe his best approach for maximizing his contract would be a 1-year deal this year, and then coming back when things are a little bit more under control financially next year. And maybe he does get a 4-year deal next year. Whereas I don't think there's any way he's getting a 5-year deal right now.
Yeah, make the same amount of sense that it did earlier in this offseason. And that's when we thought it might cost more money. And we kind of said at that time, like, maybe kind of wait if they wait it out or if they get the deal they want. That's always the thing with the Dodgers. If they get the deal they want, and if it came down to it, a short-term deal or an opt-out deal, or a more team-friendly deal would make a lot of sense. That's the deal the Dodgers would want. It's one of those kind of like bringing back Kike and to a smaller extent of, yeah, you might be blocking some young talent a little bit. Maybe Gavin Stone doesn't get that opportunity. Maybe Emmett Sheehan doesn't get that opportunity. But again, maybe they still might. There's always fluctuations and injuries and everything else when it comes to pitchers specifically, and for the Dodgers, the last couple of years and the last few years more realistically. So yeah, it makes sense. And it's one of those that kind of, I don't know if I make this point for Snell or for somebody else at some point. You're kind of locked in these next 2 years for sure, 4 years while Freddie's still around, of go out and get everything you need. You have young talent, you have the talent that's locked in, you have a lot of stuff that's kind of in your favor right now. There's no reason to not go about it. And realistically, paying Blake Snell, if you can get the deal you want right now, makes a lot more sense than trading for someone at the deadline if something does happen.
Yeah. And, when you talk about blocking guys, Snell has thrown 180 innings in his 2 Cy Young seasons. His max in any other season is 129. And so, there's going to be opportunities for other guys to start, even if they sign Blake Snell. Chances are he's going to have, a break or two during the season where, he needs a little rest.
So we'll see what happens. There was a little string of injury updates on Tuesday morning from around the league from pitchers, but one came from the Red Sox, who are not going to be a contending team, and 2 were not long-term injuries, they believe. So I don't know if that's enough to push the needle for any of those teams to sign Snell or Montgomery. So as far as we're concerned, Snell will still be out there getting into the weekend. So
yep.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. Make sure to subscribe to get notified when our episodes are ready. And make sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter as Snydog. I'm at Vincent91. You can DM either of us on those accounts if you need to get a hold of us. The Locked On Podcast Network has 2 24/7 streaming channels, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles. They're breaking down the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world from Locked On hosts, experts, and more. And they're running all day and all night, so go check those out on YouTube. You can also become a Locked On Dodgers insider by going to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers and text directly with us. Have an inside direct line to us for any questions, comments, thoughts, reactions. Pretty much anything Dodger related if you really want. I don't know if we've done anything non-Dodger related, but I guess that's also possible on there if you really want to get intimate. So you can go do that. Joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. You can also get a hold of us via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car, if you're at home, tell your smart device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.